Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters Net podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Today, welcome a special guest, and actually another one out of the Vegas region. We got Graham Michael Watson. How you doing today, brother?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
Not too bad. It's 3 o'clock out here, but I guess it's just noon over there. So,
Yes, sir.
all right. I guess how you been recently? What's new?
I'm currently in between day jobs. I'm a maintenance construction engineer by trade. Have been for a while, but I get a chance to kick back and record music. So God is good. Take the good with the bad. You know what I mean?
I guess so. I guess do you do like building sort of construction? Or you do like some of the road construction?
I've been on every aspect of new construction. From commercial to residential. The job I just terminated, I was the supervising engineer for Embassy Suites here in Las Vegas.
That's pretty cool. And actually, I've interviewed a couple guys out of the Vegas region already. Do you know State of War and Gravethorn?
What's that?
There's a State of War and Gravethorn. They're based out of the Vegas region as well. Have you heard about them?
Not really. I'm just starting to get back into the scene. I've been out of it for effectively about 15 years, and so I'm just getting back into it and trying to get to know people. And I've met a few. All the old school people are there, and so that's cool. So I'm just getting familiar with the scene out here. So. I just got back into effect. I decided, I thought I would never play music again. I was resigned to that, and I was kind of forced on the 21st of December. It was kind of like it was a really small company Christmas party for these people I was working with, and they knew I was a professional in the past, and they're like karaoke kings. So they're like, dude, you got to play, and I was a little over 6 months sober. I had never sang sober ever, and so my first live performance, I sang the song "Junkhead" by Alice in Chains. So it was pretty classic, and then, everybody was just like, holy shit, and then eventually, shortly after that, I took my guitars off my wall and I started practicing again. I had a untreated broken wrist and played through that, and it just kind of snowballed from there, and I started pulling out all my old archives and stuff like that, and the whole thing just blew up. It's like, it's still relevant, let's get it out there. We have these platforms now, like DistroKid and all that kind of stuff. I never had that when I was younger. If we did, boy, it would have been over, so, so that part of it's really exciting. It's good, whoever listens, thank you. If not, I have the opportunity to get all my stuff out there, so, and I have a mighty list. I have a huge body of work, so it's cool.
That's good to hear. And actually, a big shout out to Wayne Noon, because he had actually.
Oh yeah, Wayne, what up?
Yeah, actually, how'd you two meet? Did he just stumble across you by accident?
That's kind of funny because like I said, I thought I was out, but I was always just checking things out, on social media, staying around metal, what's out there and stuff like that. And he's got his own thing, the Rat Salad Review, and he was asking for. Stories about King Diamond, if you ever met him and stuff, and I had these stories, I got to open up for King Diamond twice, and I also got to open up for Merciful Fate that same year, and my story was that, out of all of it, I met everybody in the band. I never got to meet King Diamond, and you don't take it personal, it didn't work out business-wise. And, so I'm sitting there, basically rotting on my couch. I'm trying to send him a video, dude. And I'm just unbelievably drunk out of my mind. I was really fucking sick, and sorry, my vernacular, I'm gonna slip out, but I'll try to behave myself. But yeah, I was a mess, just morbidly alcoholic, and I don't think he could even post my videos. But since I've been back, I hit him up, and he's just like, "Well, yeah, you look a lot better, So, and we just started talking. He offered to do some drum tracks for me, and right now he's got things going on, so he wasn't able to do it. But we're probably going to be working together later, and so he passed me on to you, and I understand you're a pretty good drummer yourself. So we can talk about that later. But yeah, so that's how all this stuff works. You network, and everything's ego driven, or we wouldn't do it. But you put that aside, we all network. This is how we get things done, get things heard. So my mantra for 2025 is FTBS, fuck the bullshit 2025, so 2024 was fight the good fight, and I got some interesting results, so here we are.
I was like, fight a good fight. That was a Triumph song, so it's almost like...
You caught that one, huh?
Yeah, I actually hear it on the radio too, because Ozzy's Boneyard, they play a lot of the classic hits, and obviously the Triumph teams, Fight the Good Fight, Magic Power. Let's see, there was always a third one.
Yeah, that's the Canadian power trio that often gets forgotten. Everybody's into Rush, which God bless them, they're great. But yeah, Triumph, it was spectacular. Those guys were awesome.
Absolutely, it would be nice if they were still around, but
I know, but well,
shit happens.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Actually, I think the other one, Fuck the Bullshit, I think that was a Jesus Piece song, I think.
Oh, yeah?
I think so.
It was original.
I mean, everyone's going to say it at some point here, too, so I think they just beat you to it and make it into a song. So.
Right. Well, everything not so ironically has to do with another, so.
I guess so.
It's all good.
But we get to elaborate on everything else here, too, just a little bit here, too, mate. But actually, I'm kind of curious, because obviously you already had a good story with King Diamond and all that stuff here, too. So I think it's going to be interesting with some of these other questions I got for you here, too. So, you ready?
Sure. Yeah, what's up?
All right. So I guess let's start here, the first one. So who are you, and how did you become a musician?
I am Graham Michael Watson, the Scapegoat. Scapegoat, it's not a permanent name, but it seems to fit me well. So anyway, how I became a musician, I come from a really talented family. My cousin Christopher Wills, he's a music professor. So as a little kid, he was walking around the house when we, visit. All the family would get together for Christmas, and he'd be walking around with his clarinet, could play any tune, blah blah blah, and he'd be sitting there writing stuff out. What are you doing, Chris? And he'd go, "Oh, I'm writing a symphony." The guy's like all about 18 years old, and I'm just like, wow, And so I was always into rock and roll and stuff like that. My dad was a guitar player, and just eventually I said I wanted to do it, and he taught me 3 chords. It was Bad Moon Rising by Creedence, and I had to learn it because that was the going song in the movie American Werewolf in London. So he played it. I was like, dude, that sounds like Bad Moon Rising. I got to learn that. And he's like, no shit, dude. So my dad taught me like 3 chords, and I just went with it, and everybody's like, yeah, you're not a guitar player. I was like, oh yeah, watch this. And that's just how it progressed, and just, I was, I had a lot of literature, and, just like I said, my family was really talented. My cousin Chris, he actually did the soundtrack for the first Spider-Man movie, the one with Tobey McGuire, and his brother is I forget his main title, but his brother at like 19 or 20 was the head art director for Tower Records in Westwood, and just like he did a big building-sized portrait of Apollonia back then that he did with spray paint, like just ridiculous stuff, but yeah, Chris or Scott was involved with the original Ren and Stimpy, did Samurai Jack, he worked on Space Jam, so he is an animation director. I don't know his exact title, but he won an Emmy for Samurai Jack, and he's all humble about it. He's just like, yeah, whatever. But I grew up, around people like that, so any thoughts that you couldn't do something just didn't exist, so I just did it. I wanted to be in a band. Some of the younger kids, we're not ready. So I started jamming with older kids, started off as a bass player because that was the only slot I could get, and then, it just takes forever to learn how to play a solo. So I watched like Vivian Campbell play for Dio, and I was like, well, I can do something like that, and just started moving my fingers, and then it all just comes together, and then I never took like official guitar lessons, but I watched everybody, and I had a good opportunity to hang out with some really phenomenal guitar players just on a personal level, and you pick up what you pick up, and eventually you add enough spices to get your own style, whatever it is, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I knew I had to do it, and then I was in like chorus and choir, so I knew I could keep a tune, and eventually it just evolved that every band I ended up in, I was the front man, and so it's just a matter of just being who you are, and then going from there. So that's how that all happened.
That's definitely an interesting story right there. Did you ever get into Ren and Stimpy or Samurai Jack?
I never got into Samurai Jack. I had seen it, but younger people I had jammed with were like, "Oh my God, why aren't we crawling up your cousin's ass?" I was just like, "Dude, he's doing his thing. Let's do our thing." It ain't about that. And but yeah, I was definitely into Ren and Stimpy. That was a good mind fry for everybody, back in the day. So. It's just, pretty cool, just like, wow,
Yeah, I remember Ren and Stimpy. I was never traumatized by it. I think I just never really understood the adult jokes until like later in life.
Right.
Actually, for some reason, I think I got into the whole thing with Ren having like, not sleep apnea, insomnia.
Right. Yeah,
I'll get $5 if someone can knock me out. So, yeah.
Right.
We always hold like all these dollar bills up and everything here too, so it's almost like that's not $5, man. So
yeah, he didn't have anything to do with the writing. It was more like the style, like the backgrounds and stuff. If you look into that, all the really surreal, just sick, dark shit. Is like pretty cool. So, but yeah, I was into it, but. A lot of people got more into it than I ever was, but yeah, good stuff. Definitely iconic,
the good old days, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they tried like doing it more like an adult version since there was so much adult humor into it, but I guess it didn't pan out as I thought it would.
Right. Yeah. It seems like you can't make inside joke like that anymore. It's kind of stupid, but yeah, it's definitely a good era. People talk a lot about the '90s and stuff like that, but it was like a good transition from from like 70s and 80s, everything just kind of blended together, and there's a lot of creative stuff that happened. I don't see as much of it now, or maybe I'm not paying attention, but yeah, you definitely can't reinvent some certain things,
Can't do any remakes. People don't seem to like the remakes these days.
People do it all the time. It's either a good one or a bad one,
We'll make it a live action before you know it. So how about that?
Right, that would be interesting.
I don't know. I think I'd be kind of freaked out by it, to be honest. But all right. Well, congrats to your cousin there too. I mean, that's pretty hell of a nice role.
Those guys are awesome. I keep, relatively keep, I keep in touch with Chris. We don't talk often, but we got each other on Instagram, so we know what each other is doing and stuff like that, and we're just living life, so that's cool.
Is he doing anything new recently? Because I think I always pronounce his name wrong, but Denny Tartakovsky, who did Samurai Jack, he also did Primal a little bit later. Did he get involved with that project at all?
I'm not sure. Like I said, the last time I talked to Scott was right after our grandmother had passed away, and it was kind of a solemn moment. We just all kind of like, here we are. So we didn't really get a chance to talk career or anything like that. We were just being people, so. But I just know they're involved. They're the people who were doing it, so.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll make sure it stayed out on the resume if he ever looks for a different project at some point. So.
Well, we'll keep talking. That's why, that's what I said. Networking is everything. You know what I mean? But
sure.
I'm back in the art and entertainment and music industry for what it's worth. So it's like nothing's off limits as far as I'm concerned. To me, art saves. So if we need more of that, always.
I think it's easier just putting it into words than it is actually painting a picture, because you think of a Cannibal Corpse with all their stuff talking about violence and necrophilia. So,
yeah.
This is about shooting blood from your cock or that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, I just watched an interview with Chris Barnes on I forget the channel, but anyways, he's back on tour. He's sober now too, and he was talking about a lot of those old days and how he wrote his music, and made a lot of sense to me. It's pretty cool. It's the stuff just kind of comes to you. It's not like, I think we all have we all have a really dark side, and people. I think like metal music and all that kind of stuff. I think it helps those things more than hurt. The venting, because I was always into people were collecting Spider-Man and Batman comics. Man, my first collecting things were I had Heavy Metal magazine because of the artwork, and I had the first issue of Fangoria magazine when I was like 7 years old. You had to have it. It had Godzilla on it, and the big fold-out poster of Godzilla, and I just been into, dark stuff, since I can remember, and so that's how that works with me,
I think I remember what podcast it was. I think it was Garza, I think his name is. I think he's the guitarist for Suicide Silence.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yep. Dark hair, dark long hair.
Yeah. And I think I would like to ask him, what made you want to pick necrophilia to kind of talk about in your lyrics?
Well, he says in the interview, his mom used to repeat a poem to him, and he recites it, and he got really emotional about it because his mom just passed away. And so if anybody, it's on YouTube. It's an awesome interview if you're into that scene. He goes through the whole thing, and really nostalgic for me because we were all there when thrash metal. A lot of people like Metallica, started doing what they did, which is awful, and a lot of the other bands kind of followed suit for a minute, so shame on them, but they're all back, doing the heavier stuff, that everybody, right there in 1992, the transition to grunge, and nobody really knew what the hell they were doing, but the one thing that was solid for me was death metal, and I'm not even a pure death metal musician, but I knew that's where the players were. They were doing, so all that stuff. And my original band had broken up, so I teamed up with my buddies. We actually helped them get their band together by networking. And so I was just tagging along, being a guitar tech for a band called Laceration, and we got to hang out with Morbid Angel. We got to hang, just all, we were in it, in its inception. And I'll give my buddy Death Dave a plug right now. His new band, we're all in our 50s, and he's got a new death metal band out called Death Drop. And they're out there on all the streaming services, and it's really kick ass, So metal never dies, man. It's still relevant. You look at Chris Barnes. He's all silver haired. They're all in their 60s. We just went and saw the Kerry King band here in Vegas. These guys were like, 60 or pushing it, and they're up there, we're all in the pit at 50 years old, yeah, we get a little bit winded, but damn, dude, this shit is still alive, bro. I'm planning on going to see Carcass and Cannibal Corpse with Meshuggah here coming in April. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, it's all still around. It's still relevant, man.
Yeah. Actually, I got tickets to see that show too when they come to my neighboring town of Pittsburgh. So,
yeah, sweet. Yeah, keep it flowing. As Chuck Schuldiner used to say, let the metal flow.
Hey, rest in peace too.
May rest in peace.
Yep. And actually, I was a little surprised. I actually did see 6 Feet Under when they were touring with Nile and the two other groups, Psychroptic and Embryonic Autopsy. And they actually had Jack Owen.
Oh yeah.
So I was a little surprised about that.
Yeah, those guys get around, they keep it alive, man. The other one is, I got to meet Eric Rutan when he first joined Morbid Angel. It's like the first year Laceration did a show with them. They were touring for Blessed Are the Sick, so it was all the original lineup. And then the next, who's this guy, he's from Ripping Corpse, whatever that is, whatever, now he's like death metal master, and it's just, to be around those guys when it was all starting was really cool, so we're all part of it, man. And we're all still there. So,
yep. Did you see Morbid Angel when they just entered their prime with Altars of Madness?
We got into them, and I got to hand it to my buddy Death Dave. He's the one who got me into death metal. I actually gave him that name because he's a big Slayer fan. But then, he got into the band Death, and so I wasn't ready for it yet. I didn't think, so I was just kind of playing with him, and that's how he got his name. But, he had Altars of Madness, and then we really got into Blessed Are the Sick, and that's about the time they started coming around to our area, and his band had started transitioning into pure death metal and stuff like that, so right there, 91, 92, that's when just everything just kind of shifted, and people made choices, you know what I mean? And I was always a big, hybrid guy, you know what I mean? So, I was always into King Diamond, A Merciful Fate, from the beginning. And, Slayer, of course, but yeah, so when the first transition where I had to admit that I was a death metal fan was the 10 Commandments by Malevolent Creation. I was just like, okay, I'm in. This is the shit, so. But yeah, I got to hand it to Death Dave, man. Death Drop, man. You got to check them out, man. It's awesome music. It's still there. It's awesome.
That's good. Actually, I lifted the hands like, I give up. All right.
Yeah.
I give. Give me all the death metal you got there, people. So.
Yeah.
But I guess I was checking out some of the links you had sent over to me. It looked like you've been a part of a good number of bands.
Yeah, quite a few.
I guess just for short stories' sakes, can you tell the audience what bands you've been a part of?
The first band was Plague Lord, which was, it was hybrid. We were doing everything from, cover wise. We didn't do a bunch of it. We had all originals, but, we were doing like Celtic Frost tunes, Return to the Eve, and a little, with Angel of Death. We ended up doing, stuff like that. But we would even do like we did Stigmata Martyr by Bauhaus, and I was really into Jane's Addiction, so we were just like mixing thrash with funk, and it was kind of like anything goes. But when I got into death metal, I think it was the speed, the skill level, and plus that's when I got really dark as a person, and I did become a real Satanist, and I think everybody was just kind of, oh, we're gonna go over here and do that, they just kind of went their own way, so yeah, I started freaking people out. So,
yes, what's that one group you're a part of? A Scapegoat's Faith?
Scapegoat's Faith. That is more of a concept than a band, and it basically what it embodies. It's stuff that I've done on my own. It's stuff that I've done with other musicians that was either too conceptual, or you didn't have enough time to put it in a 45-minute set, or a 30-minute set, where you're doing the club scene. It's not the stuff off the cutting room floor. It's just it's the more involved stuff that takes time to get the point across and stuff like that. So. That's it's a Scapegoat's Faith, so it's meant to be collaborative, but there's a lot of stuff I can do on my own, but I like working with other styles, and it's stuff where people had this much of a concept and I took it and went like this with it, and stuff like that, so it's basically a thing to put on the table to where you don't have to be into a box. It's like, let's get these ideas out, and it's not even just writers, it's just, it's a place for somebody to get their stuff heard, it's like, if you want to come aboard, but a Scapegoat's Faith is, it's everything that's kept me going, like musically in life, and it's, like I said, it's more of a concept than a band,
Yes, was that what you were trying to get Wayne into, or was it a different project?
Yeah. It's I had a drummer that I was working with, Ernie Basner, and he never, he had it early on. He never wanted to be a live musician, and everybody, and that's fine. But he was always just honing his skill. And he spent a lot of time with my material and helped me arrange it and stuff like that. And I still have his drum tracks, but I didn't get all of them. And I kept joining other bands because, we got to go out and be rock stars, So he worked really hard, and he's on the like the Infidel demos and stuff like that. And I actually have his drum tracks. He's going to be on the actual album, The Chorus of Our Infidelity, which is something that I finished writing. I think I finished writing the last song around 1999, and we were going to call it something else, but it's embodied by a song that I wrote when I was 23. That's called A Scapegoat's Faith, and I was like, that's the name of the project, and it's pretty much anything goes. That's why I list myself as the director. You know what I mean? Because you can come in and do what you want, but I'm the director. I get the final cut, but I welcome everything. It's self-expression, So. But yeah, that's what I was gonna ask him, but he was like, "Hey, dude, do you want me to do some tracks?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, dude!" So and I got some other drummers. I got one guy I'm working with, Larry. What up? He's trying to tackle some of the stuff, and then my buddy Tom Meadows, who was in Tyrant back in the Metal Blade days. They were on like Metal Massacre 4 with Metallica and stuff like that. But so he's an old Metal Blade artist, and he's coming back to Grand Junction, which is not too far from here, and he's interested in laying down some tracks and stuff like that. And I got another guy who's trying to come in. He's been busy with work. He's very interested. He's here in town, trying to hook up with him. And then I had some female vocals going on. I had one person that I was working with that she chose a different path and whatever. And then I had another person who was going to come in, and she had some health problems and took an injury. So I'm keeping an eye on her, trying to keep things positive. But I brought in my secret weapon, who is Slayer chick. She's going to be picking up the vocals for the album that's coming out. I was going to try to put it out on the 15th of this month, but since she's agreed to do it, I was going to do it without the female vocals. But she's agreed to do it, so I pushed back the release to we're going to do it April 15th for the Suffering Season, which is that was supposed to be the name of the project, meant for female vocals, and I was effectively shut down by my ex-wife, who was supposed to be the female vocalist, and she had other ideas. So it's based around what ended up being an EP that I only released on like MySpace, and it's on YouTube on the Illuminatus Music channel. You can check out the EP. I haven't released it because I'm releasing what it was meant to be, which is a full-length album. And it's cross-genre, and has a lot of musicians on it. And it even goes into a little bit of the electronic, kind of, Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson kind of stuff like that. So it goes all over the place. And so I brought in Slayer chick, my secret weapon, and I broke the ice with her. And she was like, I can't sing. I'm like, you're a vocalist. There's a difference, but I need that female energy. It's like, if what I was doing had Beyonce on it, it would sound like shit, it's that, anyways, we'll get the concept across, and that's going to be coming out on April 15th. And it's called The Suffering Season by A Scapegoat's Faith.
Right. I guess what do you need me for in particular? I guess because it seemed like Wayne was meant to be your first choice, but then he backed out. So
Yeah, well, like I said, the door's open, and I'll send you some tracks if you want to, if you want to give it a shot, man.
I'll say why not.
Yeah, so I guess anybody, if anybody wants to get the idea of the concept, you can go to Illuminatus Music, which is like illumination. Natus is Satan spelled backwards, and the catchphrase is bringing negativity to light. But that's the whole body of work. It's on Bandcamp if you guys want to check it out. So that's everything that's been released. So that handles Plague Lord. That handles Pathos Intertwined. We ended up releasing the album under the name Intertwined, but I've changed it to Pathos Intertwined. It's historically correct, and it's easier to find on a search engine. And because this intertwined is so ambiguous. Basically, if you type that into Google, you're going to find wineries and all kinds of different stuff. But so Pathos Intertwined was an album that was the band we opened up for King Diamond and Merciful Fate, and Plague Lord we got to open up for Fate's Warning and Sanctuary down in Mexico and stuff like that. So we've been around, but so then we had Culture War with a K, which was more kind of like that was a little hybrid too, but the main writers musically they wanted to go for that metalcore kind of stuff, and I was like, yeah, I could do that, and so doing that, it brought out more lyrics in me, less music, but that's all relevant, and that we were looking at a pretty good sized contract that let's just say it didn't happen. And me and John, who was the bass player, who is now himself an all-around musician and a recording engineer, producer, he helped produce all that stuff. So I just we had the artwork done, we had the logos done, and some mixes that were going to be the studio album, and I just took everything and said, boom, here you go, listen to it. And it's funny, this is U-Sheep, that's the name of John's studio in association with the Bleeding Goat Studios, which is my studio. So I didn't wear this on purpose, but it works, that's cool. But yeah, we're all out there. You can check us out on Bandcamp and YouTube and all streaming services. And so it was Plague Lord, Culture War, Plague Lord, Pathos Intertwined, Culture War, and then I moved on to Sound Cancer, which is even more kind of mind blowing because that mixed all kinds of different styles. And that was another one, I put a lot into, we all did, and, things just don't work out. That one was really theatrical. It was, it was pretty cool, but, I burnt the candle at both ends on that one. Cause, I was in, we were doing shows and I was in the cover band that warmed up the show, so I had to do double duty, plus working full time, plus producing, and recording all this stuff. I ended up, they almost had to intubate me. I got pneumonia and all this stuff, and that all happened. That was right before I left California, which is the last recordings I did in California is now a Scapegoat's Faith album called O-Side Jailbreak 07. So, and that's more of your your alternative rock kind of stuff, so that's pretty cool. It's a different palette, than, all the more traditional metal stuff that I've done, but some of those songs, it's like I would have never done those styles if it weren't for the musicians around me, just like kind of, here, dude, do this. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, but yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of different sounds with Illuminatus music. So go in and check it out, and we're doing a lot of new stuff, and it's exciting. It's good to be back. I pulled pulled my head out of my ass, and it's all still relevant. And so I picked up where I left off, which was 2009, and I put everything I've done out, and we're doing new stuff. And anyone who wants to collaborate, follow my links. I'm open. You can email me. We can talk. With technology now, you don't have to be in the same room, and that is awesome. Because we did the Intertwined album. It was just me and the bass player. Nobody else saw each other, because by that time the band was pretty much done. We just kind of recorded it for posterity's sake, and to get it out there. But we were one of the first bands out on MP3.com. We actually hit the charts there for a while with bands like Bird and the Priest. I don't know if you heard of them. They're called Lamb of God now, and. So yeah, we were there. We're all part of it, man. So, and we're all still here. So let's do some music. Let's get it out there.
That's for sure. I just want to be like, I've seen it all. That's sort of
say pretty much. You've been there, done that. Yeah, because I have.
Oh yeah. And I was going to kind of lead into this. How about we combine these two right here? Because I think it seems like you went through a lot of challenges in your life, probably mental, maybe some abuse, I don't know. But what challenges have you faced throughout your life? And I guess you can tie in here with COVID here too, because I wasn't sure if COVID was kind of a reset button. I don't know, but I guess go ahead.
Well, COVID was that was the pinnacle point of my morbid alcoholism. I had got laid off, laid off, fired, whatever you want. So when COVID happened, that was the day the world lost its mind. And so I was going to do the same old thing, which was going to collect unemployment and work under the table, like every good red-blooded American. But about 2 weeks after I was let go, I was just like, man, my legs don't work, and I was just like, I would at any given moment, just turn into jelly, like it would look like I'd lose consciousness, but I wasn't, it's just like, I wasn't producing any hemoglobin, and even on top of that, I refused to stop drinking. So I was resigned to the fact that I'm just going to die, and I really don't care. And I lived my life. I did these things, And the funny thing happened was I got bored, and that's about it. That's how I got sober. That's what it took. So, a DUI didn't do it. I could go through a list of bad things that happen when you're drunk. But nothing was going to stop me. And I was laying there. I was just like, okay, so this is how it ends. And I was cool with that too. I had made peace with God and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, what? Let's do it. And I was like, oh man, and so I went, I got into the program, and I'm not waving any flags other than the fact, if you want a way out, there's a way out, and there's 12 steps to prove it. So you can take that for what it's worth, and it even says in our literature, showed signs of being out of control and you can pull it around and act like a gentleman, great, but if you need to, there's a very large group of people by millions that stick together, and it works. So you can take that for what it's worth. So I mean that's basically what happened in COVID. It gets a little darker than that, but I don't know what's darker about laying around being okay to die, but there's a lot that went into that. So yeah, like I said, I had been working, as an engineer and, doing all these projects, doing, stuff, for companies that they didn't think they knew how to do. I was like, hey, let's do these things. And they kind of forced me into singing again, and I did. And then next came the guitar, and challenges. What do I got to say about that, man? Just keep going, man. FTBS. However you like it, prayer and meditation works, if you don't force it, so basically what I understand in life is you go around looking for answers, and basically what you're going to find is a lot more questions. So you can either keep it simple or keep going, but basically you got to find a balance somewhere, and that's where you're going to get some peace, so that's the thing about challenge and COVID and, and all that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of stories of what happened with COVID combined with the influx of all the fentanyl, and I have been personally infected by all of it, and I'm a conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. My mantra is put on your tinfoil hat because it's all real, So
like, they're listening. So yeah.
Right. Anyways, yeah.
That's good.
So. Yeah, so that's where we're at, and if you're interested, the first time I ever recorded the song "A Scapegoat's Faith" was December 12th of last year, and if you want, I'll perform it for you.
If you have it, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, give me a second.
Right.
restriction does not bring forth truth. Compelling me since that man can be tamed. No universal path to take. Make mockery of atrocity. Yet innocent with it respectfully. True understanding of life's magic will make fools of noble offspring. Yet I am haunted by those I love and lost. Please understand that you had broken your oath. A blade touches skin as I bleed inside. A sorry repentance, not of sin, nor of the way this world is tainted me. If I die before my time, I'll await my reconjuring forever and beyond. My discontent shall float on the breeze. In the air you'll hear me to bend the cuts bleed. Now my demon is freed. I see him dance before me. Blasphemies. With his great friend created for me by me. Soothing iniquity helps me to see life so clear. I never meant to push loved ones away. Honestly, Satan was within, crying for those who blame him for the sins bleeding from his chest. Symbolically, just like Jesus did, and I have now been blessed with an iniquity you soon shall discover and share. And the taste of it is so bittersweet. Everyone who loved me betrayed themselves just like me. No tears to cry when nature conquers man. Money won't kill folks' cries, no woman or other man. We're tired hands down to sleep end of the game. My ladder of lights can be climbed by the sea. Insane. I know I can see us in the pain that arrogance brings as we blame our infidelities upon them who had the power to hurt us the most. We empower a frightening ghost. They brightly took room for forgetting what they were about. And this turned two souls inside out. Some build a wall and some cower, avoiding the pain, never knowing the price of this game. Afraid of the beast inside, we turn to saviors and still are not saved. Maybe death is what it would take for some to learn that our minds should not be ruled by empty human words. And maybe now we pay for all the people we led astray. If the judgment were mine, could not ignore the grave mistakes we made. When on the other hand, maybe our hearts end up in the right place, in between love and hate, lies a scapegoat's faith.
All right, look at that. Oh. Man, you're thinking and shit, son. So yeah.
Yeah, I get around.
I've been around, yeah. So
yeah.
Right. Actually, what guitar is that? I guess. What else? What kind of gear do you got?
This is a American-made BC Rich Ironbird, and this is it's a Santa Monica version. These are the real deal. The Bernie Ricos, and I also have a Warlock, which is old school. It's even got the hand stamp, handmade in USA. You know, so BC Rich. You know, there's a little of this and a little of that around them. You know, there's good ones and there are bad ones. I have the good ones. But you can't beat the body styles, man. They're just so freaking metal, dude. You know,
so that one's got the metal, so it's like a lightning bolt. So yeah, it's so metal, man.
I don't know if you can see it, but yeah. This one's really cool. This one, actually, I found it in Temecula. Some punk rock dude had it on consignment, and it was one of those things I went into get guitar strings, and it was just like, oh, you know, like, you must, I am yours, you know, and I did what it took to get it, and it's been with me ever since. The Warlock I have has been with me forever, and you know, it was homeless with me. You know, it hid in the bushes. I carried it around in a blanket I still have since I was 14, and you know, so that one has a wiring issue. Otherwise, I'd take it off the wall and show it to you. But it's still with us. I wrote the majority of every song I've written on that guitar. You know, so I've had a few other BC Riches that ended up leaving me, some under unfortunate circumstances, but these are the two, the Ironbird and the Warlock. You know, they just stick around, you know, and they still work, and they're awesome, and they you know, they play themselves. You know, it's good. You know, that's cool. And so I'm playing through. I have the Line 6 Helix, you know, the big badass processor, which is probably as far as process sound, probably the best thing I've ever I've ever plugged into, for the cost. I know there's other emulators and stuff out there. I know Gary Holt from Exodus has his little package going on. And, I love that dude. I've been influenced by him, since I was a little kid. And, it's cool. Slayer Chick's actually, she's good friends with Jack. They're good friends, but they're coming to Grand Junction. Actually, I might go out. She's got a friend out there, and I got my friend Tom who wants to do drums. So we might be taking a trip out there to go see Exodus with Deicide over there in Grand Junction. So that should be pretty cool. It's definitely on the menu. So we might have a road trip coming up. And and then as far as my amplification, I'm playing through a Marshall valve state, which I don't believe random is probably my least favorite word in any language, but my old guitar player who had a stint working at Guitar Center was like, dude, I got this used amp, you got to check it out. So I brought this guitar in and plugged it in, and we just blew the doors off Guitar Center. I was like, wow, this thing's bitching, I got to have it, right? And so I picked it up. I'm like, yeah, that is the tone I want. And then sure enough, I wasn't really paying attention. We're opening up for King Diamond. Boom. There's Andy playing Marshall valve states. Like, well, that's why I like the tone. And then later that year, I got to see, before we opened up for Merciful Fate, they headlined Milwaukee Metal Fest with Death. And this is before Chuck passed away. They were just putting out The Sound of Perseverance. And I was looking there, and boom, Chuck is playing the Marshall valve states, so I didn't pick it, but I knew the tone I was looking for, and they're all, and even Deicide, I saw some recent footage of them, and they're playing valve states still. But I used to do the dual amp. I had the PV 5150, and unfortunately I had to sell that, so I'm definitely looking to get that element back, so it's basically, it's processed sound going through the big badass drivers, which is pretty much what everybody's doing these days and stuff like that, so you can get straight out direct from the Helix, you can get what you need done, but if you're any kind of gearhead, it's, you want the real deal, you want the spirit behind those amps, you know what I mean? So yeah, this is going through the it's going through the board direct, but it's also going through the Marshall valve state, which the speaker cabinet is in the closet, and I have it mic'd through the board. So you're actually hearing the whole thing. But I need to add that PV 5150. I need to get that back. So and that'll happen. So
in due time. So yeah.
We, like I said. It's just it's great to be back into things, be completely motivated, and have the technology now. Like I said, we had that when we were like 17, 18. So these kids today, they have the benefit of learning from what we did and what the people did before us. So these kids, at 16 are walking out with shreddiness like you wouldn't believe, and then we have all this technology now, man, so there ain't no excuse, bro. If you can do it, so I'm not one of those guys that's these spoiled kids, which they are, but we did it the hard way, you know what I mean, scrimping and saving to save a couple $100 to $1,000 to put out 4 songs, and you got to do it real quick, and this is what you get, and but now it's, you got you got all this room to work and get the sounds that you need, and it's really bitching, you know. And I actually I saw another interview, same podcast, with Glenn Benton, you know, and he's just like, yeah, you know, there's something to be said about that $1 million studio and all that, you know, all that board gear and stuff like that. And he's like, dudes are recording albums right now on a laptop, you know. And I was like, yeah, I got you, bro. And that's exactly what I'm doing. You know, this computer I'm talking to you through is actually recording my music. You know what I mean? I'm doing, you know, full albums with, you know, with a freaking laptop, you know. And it's really cool, you know. So for, you know, for musicians out there, you know, if you're, you know, Dave Weckl, you know, the drummer Dave Weckl said something, you know, because I play drums too, but I'm not that good. But you know, Dave Weckl was like, my advice to you. This was at a drum clinic he was doing, and he's like, my advice to you, any young musicians, you know, he's sitting there and he's like, just to do as much as you can do before you get old. And everybody's kind of like, what? And he's like, let me explain what getting old is. So getting old is when you have to pay bills. And I was like, yeah, that's a good fucking point, man. You know, so.
I mean, I had to pay rent in order to live in the house here. So I mean, like, you gotta do something to appease the parents.
Old, bro. You know, you gotta pay rent, you gotta pay bills, you gotta buy gas. You're old. So you know, make it all relative. You know, but you know, then you can go into the, you're only as old as you feel. Yeah, well, tell that to my knee, you know, so. But yeah, so, for, you know, use the technology. I mean, we got it, you know, and, you know, so for young guys, man, do it, man. You got no excuses, really, you know, so.
Yeah, speaking of which, because it seems like AI is unfortunately kind of taking over, so I think that's what they meant by the spoiled kids.
Right.
So I guess, what do you think of that, social media?
Here's what I got to say about AI. To be a complete hypocrite, I use it because it's a lot easier and a lot less expensive to do masters with like E-mastered and stuff like that, and the results are killer, and you do actually have human contact where you can do adjustments, you know, so it is a quick way to get your stuff done. But, you know, given the budget, I would sit around like the guys in Tool and pay $5,000 an hour to sit in those grand studios and do it myself. You know, but in order to get your stuff across, you know, those kind of things are okay, but I'm not too much into type in a couple words and let AI write your hit for you. You know, I think that's a bunch of crap, you know, but I think anything is, tools are what they are, whether it's, you know, philosophy or whatever, you know, or, you know, a belief system or, you know, just, you know, a moral, you know, so like, you know, if you have a hammer, you know, that's your tool, right? You can build a beautiful house with that hammer, or you can smash somebody's teeth in with it, you know, you choose. You know what I mean? So, you know, tools are tools, you know, we're the ones that wield them, you know, and choose wisely. You know what I mean? So, you know, if something good becomes of it, you know, but you can't tell me that you sat there and put in, you know, a couple tag words and stuff like that and wrote 1,500 songs in 10 days. You know, that's bullshit, you know. So, you know, put some soul into it, you know, but you know, basically, you know, AI could be a bad thing. We've all seen the, you know, iRobot and all that kind of stuff, and that is very well around the corner, you know. But you know, unless we're responsible, you know, Terminator and all that kind of stuff. But unless we're responsible human beings, you know, it's just like anything. You know, I see people walking around staring at their box, you know, little hate generator, you know, and you know. Basically, if I see somebody about to walk into a signpost, I'll let them. But if I see somebody walking into traffic, I'll probably say something to you, but, tools are just that, you just use them for humanity's benefit, and, don't be a slave, So, I mean, that's pretty much how I feel about that. I have an artist friend who just recently made contact with. She lives about 3 blocks away, and we haven't talked to each other in years. I've known her since I was 14, but she's an artist, and I was being a hypocrite going, man, AI, and she was like, no, she explained it to me, just, you got to learn how to use the tool and use it, the tool is always going to be there. We rule the tool, don't let the tool rule us. So we have to learn how to use this stuff. And I was like, hey, you got a point. Now I am no longer a hypocrite, but anybody wants the quick mastering shit done, E-Mastered is badass. I'm not paid to do that endorsement or anything. Nobody endorses, but that service really, I took old demos that were just kind of flat, what they were, and you can actually redo them and adjust them how you want. It's not like you just put it in and it processes it, but it's an easier, quicker way to do it, and it's pretty awesome. So those tools are out there. Use them. Let's hear some music. Put your music out. I
actually did that one interview recently, and when this question did come up, he said he knew a friend that was pretty disabled, not sure like paraplegic or anything like that, but having AI allowed him to like make music without having to like ask for like a whole bunch of people like do these parts and I'll just do this and that. So I think you can see that sort of benefit and that good side of it.
Yeah, that's what Jason Becker started doing. Way back. He was. I don't know. He's probably had a field day with the AI thing. I don't know if you know much about him, but he was the other guitar player in Cacophony with Marty Friedman before Marty joined Megadeth, and so they had the album Speed Metal Symphony and stuff, and he was playing for David Lee Roth when he started getting sick, and it was Lou Gehrig's disease, what they called it, and it's just slowly your body just starts working. You're in there, but you're in there, and there's actually some really cool footage of. Eddie Van Halen went to his house and hung out with him and, played for him and stuff. And, so yeah, the AI if you're like that, and you got all this stuff in your brain and that stuff can help get it out, I'm all for that kind of tool, but this sitting around going, typing in a few words and, I've heard some AI things, where people, they're like write a death metal song and make it about cheese, just to show how ridiculous it is. You know what I mean? But, like I said, if the tool's used properly, I have nothing against it, be like a purist, hey, no bionic legs, like, come on, dude, So if it helps us, great,
Let's hope it does help. Let's not go for the Terminator route.
Yeah,
let's say so.
Skynet.
Yeah, that'd be a bad thing. So,
there. Yeah, it's up to us in the end, man. We got to pay attention, So as long as we do that, we can be all right. If not, there's a lot of things in there to dumb people down. So
cue the Bob Marley song, because every little thing is gonna be all right.
Right.
What's up, Seth? Yeah. The song you just played right there too. First off, what was the name of it, and I guess what was it kind of talking about?
That song is called "A Scapegoat's Faith." So that is, I wrote it when I was 23 years old, and I was questioning whether I should just go out and kill everybody or kill myself. or just suck it up and take the pain. And it doesn't have to be about any one thing. I can give you a whole bunch of instances of why I was thinking the way that I was. But I wrote that song. I had never really had to rehearse it, never had to write it. I have it written down, but I didn't have to write the chords down or stuff like that. You know, it's just always been there. I never had an opportunity to do it with a band, but you know, it's a song that I've had since I was 23 years old, and it started the concept what I called a scapegoat's faith. So I got a little performance on my YouTube channel of it. It has the lyrics on there, and I'm going to be doing a full you know, HD professional video of it. And you know, so it's part of the repertoire, and it's the reasoning behind the concept of a scapegoat's faith. You know, so you know, I go by the name Scapegoat, but I am not the only one, which is why it's a scapegoat's faith. So you know, if you read the lyrics, I think we can all relate. You know, and you know, it's like I said, art saves, man. You know, so that's pretty much what that's about in the quick terms of it. And you know, the rest of it, you have to dive into it, man. Yeah. Because you know, it's funny. They have these things on Reddit, which is a whole different fucking story. That place is insane. But, you know, they have like music suggestions. Do you have a song about this? Do you have a song, you know, what song, you know, and they're asking about other artists. And I'm going through, oh, yeah, I got a song about that. So I get to do shameless plugs of my own music, you know, through music suggestion groups and stuff like that, you know. So, but, you know, over the course of about 30 years, yeah, I have a body of work, and, you know, I have no shortage of material for the future. And I'm doing it, you know. So you and I need to work together, man. I saw a little bit of your intro. I can tell you know your shit. So we'll talk after the interview, and we'll figure something out.
Yeah, it sounds good. I will admit, I was actually using MIDI when I made my intro for the podcast.
Yeah.
Rather than just like using a song, because I think if I was using Epidemic, I think it's called Epidemic Records, and they go give you like the stems for like a particular like intro song, for instance, or something like kick it off. So
yeah.
But I walked away from it because I wasn't really doing much. But I thought maybe it would be like a copyright then if I backed away from it. So I didn't want to be like, oh shit. If I got monetized, I think they wouldn't let me collect anything if I had that little copyright in the beginning there. So. Yeah. It is what it is, but it's all good.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to try something that was just uniquely my own. So
yeah.
Okay. So I guess just real quick, I guess in terms of your lyrics, I guess what else do you like to delve into? Do you always get like real dark, go into the hellish short themes?
A lot of it's dark. Some, you know, some of it's based on things I've felt, based on things that I've actually gone through. But you know, I'm not opposed to writing about things that I've witnessed. You know, and you know, it's just you know, that's the thing about, you know, bringing negativity to light. You know, it's kind of along that. You know, like Cannibal Corpse, I mean, that's about as extreme as it gets, you know, but mine is more the, you know, the inner beast, the inner turmoil, you know, and, you know, asking the questions. There's a lot of my lyrics that are pissed off at God, and which is why I really got, you know, a lot of people are just like, oh, you know, Satan, you know, because, you know, they dislike the church, which is full of hypocrisy and stuff like that. But that's I mean, to me, all that stuff is a little more real than you think. And, you know, it was, you know, it was funny because when I, you know, when I renounced Satan. I became chrismated with the Byzantine Catholic Church. And that's more of a formality to say it in public, that I don't work for the guy anymore. And I'm not waving any flags of what people should and shouldn't do. Your journey belongs to you, you know. And not so ironically, the day I was chrismated and became a Knight of Columbus ended up being the same day, the same exact day, June 14th, as my sobriety date. You know, so it took me about took me about 8 years after, 8 years after letting a bunch of negativity go and realizing I wasn't pissed off at God, I was pissed off at people. And making sense of that, you know, I still went through, hey, well, you know, Jesus' first miracle was water to wine, so I can do this, you know, but, you know, you got to die of something, you know, but, you know, it's just kind of weird that, you know, the same day I renounced Satan, you know, about 8 years later, it was the same day I got sober, you know, so I don't believe in coincidences, which is why I dislike the word random, but,
can we chalk it up to be a coincidence? I mean,
we could, you know, it's all how you want to look at it, you know, but I can look at things however I want. But I was telling my priest, Father Marcus, you know, because they ask you, you know, you have to actually, you know, take a course, you know, it's not like a sit down, you know, you got to work with the priest to say, you know, if you're really doing what you're doing, you know, it's just kind of a, you know, do you mean it, you know, and so they ask you a bunch of questions, do you believe this and you believe that, and, you know, and most of it's just like, why not, you know, and I go, you know what, Father, I said, it's pretty bad when the world is so fucked up that you have to become Catholic to remain a true rebel. I mean, he just started fucking cracking up, man. You know, it was so, you know, you take that for what it's worth, but, you know, we could rabbit hole that kind of stuff all day long, you know, but, yes, I did embrace evil for about 25 years. And the day I decided to let it go was when I heard my son, who's 15 now, I heard his first voice, his first breath. And I got a little flick on the forehead, just said, you get it now? You know? And so, and, you know, it always takes time to grow, you know, and I'm not this, this big guru. I'm still allowed to be me, you know, but I just think it's better not to hate, you know, and that's what the scapegoat does. The scapegoat bears burdens, you know, and we all do that, you know. And if you look at the ritual of Yom Kippur, what the scapegoat does, he brings the sins of the village back to Azazel, you know, so he does not work for the devil, he works with him, you know, so there's a difference, you know, and the scapegoat is the precursor ritual from the coming of the Messiah, which is, you know, what happened to Jesus Christ and stuff like that. But that's what the Jews who continue to believe that Christ was not the Messiah they still observe Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement. Once a year, you get rid of all your sins, and then you start over. You know,
I was going to say maybe like a Easter equivalent or something. So.
Yeah, it's more in the in the mid time of the year. You know, it's after summertime, and it comes at different cycles and stuff, and Anyway, you can Google it, but anyways, yes, it's still a practice ritual. Only they don't kill goats anymore, so it's all metaphor now. But what it was is there's actually two goats, and they cast a lottery. However they choose to do that, could be rolling dice, picking straws, whatever. One is the pure goat, and that's the one that goes to God. That is the bleeding goat. And the other one is the scapegoat, who is not touched and sent out into the wilderness to Azazel. And Azazel is the fallen angel ruler of earth, which it translates to Satan.
What was that hard to take in? So yeah,
that's my hocus pocus for you. So
I would say I'm also Catholic too. So shout out to you, brother.
All right, brother.
That's all good. Right. Yep. Well, congratulations there too, and congratulations being sober as well.
Yeah, it's like I said, I have a message about it, but I'm not waving a flag. I have a message about God and evil, and if you want to hear it, hear it. Yeah, it's in the lyrics, and there's lots of good fun hatred in there too, so it's not like this, oh, peace, love, oh, Jesus. What Christ is not the plastic crucifix, and the movie Dogma, the buddy Jesus, it's like, that's a bunch of crap, but yeah, it's there's the opening lyrics of the song "A Scapegoat's Faith" is, of all forms of law we cling to, restriction does not bring forth truth. And so those lyrics on there, you can take those for what it's worth. And so all of my music, it just it asks questions. If you're looking for answers, all you're gonna find, in my experience, is more questions. So if you ever choose to be satisfied, you get these little 15-minute moments of serenity, which is a new way of, serenity is another way of saying I don't give a fuck, so you get those little moments, enjoy them, and don't be sad when they're over, because life doesn't stop, but you get these little moments where everything's okay, and you live in a 24-hour period, because we all do, down to the second, just enjoy those. You get your little 15 minutes, whatever it is, you know what I mean? So
that's for sure. Yeah. So Graham, we appreciate your questions here pretty good. So here, let's jump into some fun ones. Ready?
Oh yeah.
All right. So here's the first one right here. What would you say is currently your favorite food?
My favorite food? Well, I like everything, but I grew up about 15 minutes from the Tijuana border, which pretty much makes me Mexican. And Taco Bell is not Mexican food, but if you've ever had authentic Mexican food that has to be made by grandmother, that is it, So yeah, Mexican food, but I like everything. I'm a amateur pseudo gourmet chef. I like flavors. So I'd have to say Mexican's up there, but I'm a big sushi fan myself too as well. Grew up by the beach, So hey, so what else you got?
Yep, there's that one. All right, great choices. Next one, I don't know if you're a movie nerd, but if you are, what's your favorite movie? And if you have a favorite TV series, feel free to share.
Nothing beats The Exorcist. Nothing ever will. Take that for what it's worth. The way they made the movie, what it was about, the dude who wrote the book, and what he did to the research that he did to write those two books, The Exorcist and Legion. and the way that they actually filmed that movie, as far as movie nerdness goes, like some of the shock scenes, Willem Friedkin actually hid like shotguns behind the sets, so for the jump scenes he would fire off a shotgun so they'd freak out, and they did a lot of things to traumatize each other making that movie to make it as authentic as they could, and they don't make movies like that no more, So yeah, top movie has to be The Exorcist, and then I got to throw the Passion of the Christ in there too. That movie's pretty bitchin' too.
That one is pretty hard. So yeah.
I was still in in full satanic mode when I saw that movie, and I watched it by myself, and I definitely was raised as a Christian. My grandfather was a very prominent Baptist minister. He was head of foreign missions for the Southern Baptist Association of Southern California. So, definitely no stranger to the story, but, I finished watching that movie and I was just like, dude, that dude got his ass kicked, so, yeah, it's definitely a well done movie. And, so yeah, so The Exorcist and Passion of the Christ, but I could go off, Evil Dead, all the good ones, Quentin Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs, all that good stuff,
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Can never leave out Quentin Tarantino. So.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't?
I think it was Stanley Kubrick who did The Exorcist, and I think in one of the scenes, like near the end, where you see the priest cry.
The Exorcist was Willem Friedkin.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And I was thinking Stanley Kubrick. I don't know. I thought it was because.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick. Was he Stanley Kubrick? He was Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. I think he also did The Shining, and.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, and then I thought.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, the reason I was bringing it up too, I think the guy who was playing the one priest, I think he legitimately got hit and was actually crying like near the end right there too, because he really wanted to bring out that emotion right there. So,
yeah. Well, and the puke in the face, they surprised him with that. In The Exorcist, when she pukes in his face, he was expecting it to just kind of go on his shirt, and they put up the pressure just to, like I said, they pulled tricks on everybody to really freak them out, make it authentic, so they kind of knew what was happening, but he added a little bit more to where, the shock and awe was real, and the scene where she grabs the psychiatrist by the balls, she really did that. She
went for the holy section, as we like to say. So, actually, I think the funny thing, even though it might have not seemed funny, but it was actually pretty tragic too, was like some people had passed away, or there was like some freak occurrences that happened because of the movie.
Oh yeah, you can read all about that. They broke Linda Blair's back. A lot of stuff went into making that movie.
Yeah. So I don't know if they would say it was worth it, but I mean, hey,
it's a timeless classic. Even kids who have seen all the Jason movies. You sit somebody down who hasn't seen that movie and they watch it, everybody gets freaked out. Even in this desensitized age, it's just that it's that well done.
I guess so, but all right, great choices. So, I don't know if you drink any alcohol anymore. Actually, I think you probably gave that up, so that's pretty good. So, I forgot to mention that you mentioned that earlier, but what would you say is your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Well, let's start with the alcohol. because I was a professional drinker for about 45 years, meaning I remember the first time I had beer, I was about 6 years old. And everybody was, all the kids, we got it from an adult. They were letting us try a beer, and everybody's like, ew, ew, ew. And everybody's expecting like it to taste like soda or whatever. And I took a drink of that, and I had, the suds went through my nose, and I got that little gassy thing, and I just knew right there that I had to have that in my life. And so that, to me, is when alcoholism started, because ever since then, it was a quest, It was, you look in, see if you can steal one out of the fridge, you look in, it was just always on my mind. So that being said, I've tried pretty much any kind of alcohol, but I was a beer and Jaeger guy. So pretty much, Budweiser. I got into the Bud Ice because it's 5.6. It'll get you where you want to go a lot quicker, and it's cheaper. But there was a time where I was about 18 pack and a bottle of Jaeger a night. And still never called in sick for work. Still performed in bands. Still I was good at it. I was good at drinking.
I was a trooper, so yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, beer, love beer. I don't really, I don't care for the foo stuff. Guinness is great, sandwich in every pint, but so that's more of like a connoisseur thing. But beer with some shots of Jaeger, man, that'll get me where I want to go, man. And so non-alcoholic, I drink a shitload of coffee, dude, and all black. No ash.
Straight no chaser.
Straight up, yeah. Make it look like Jaeger, bro.
If you're not addicted to one thing, you're definitely addicted to another thing. So
right.
It just seems to happen. So
yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. And you pick your battles, you find your balance. That's basically all we can do. That's the only answer I can come up with. So
do what you gotta do. At the end of the day, if we're still breathing, we're doing something right. So, all right, great choices there. And for the last one right here, here's how it will go. So if you have a favorite song, feel free to share. Could be from any band, any genre, anything in particular. But if that's too hard, just give a shout out to your top 5 bands, whether it's from the independent community or mainstream world.
Okay, so we already talked about influences and stuff like that. So we had the obviously the King Diamond and Slayer, which was cool when they toured together, because all my diehard Slayer fans got to see what I was talking about with King Diamond. They're like, oh, I get it now, So that was cool. But I gotta say, and I've always said this, dude, my favorite band of all time is Steely Dan. For a lot of reasons, and that's kind of the concept I have with a Scapegoat's Faith, is because what they did was took some of the, what came to be some of the greatest solo musicians, in their, they just found people to get these sounds. I mean, of all the Michael McDonald hits from the Doobie Brothers and his solo stuff, the one you can always remember is Pig! And, as simple as that, and they even have, the song Time Out of Mind, it's Mark Knopfler on guitar from Dire Straits, way before the, way before the Money for Nothing, that kind of, that banjo style picking, that listen to the song Time Out of Mind, and the thing I always liked about Steely Dan, is that, I would tell people that, and they're like, what the fuck, you're a metalhead, and they're like, I don't even know Steely Dan. I was like, yeah, you do, and then they'll hear a song and they're like, oh, pick the song. Everybody knows a freaking Steely Dan song.
Are you reeling in the ears?
Yeah. So
I did that one the most. So
that and I was 100% all against all the grunge stuff, but I've always had a very special place in my heart for Alice in Chains and Lane Staley, and I've covered his songs, and I don't. When I sing his stuff, it's pretty special to me, and I've been told I'm pretty good at it. But that dude definitely had something. But favorite song, I was actually thinking about this question. I don't have a new song that came out that was my favorite, but the one that keeps sticking with me since it came out in 2001 is the title track for Opeth's album Blackwater Park. And if you listen to that song, the concept of what it's talking about, the way it's written, and just the movements that the music goes through, from extreme to melodic to, just the intensity. I pretty much, for lack of a better word, when I first heard that song, I lost my mind. And it's still out. People who don't know about it all busted out on them, and just like, dude, you got to check this out. So that's always a big one. Whenever it comes on, you dig it. But as and then I've been getting into. I've always respected him. But there was a big part of like after Lateralus. I kind of tuned out on the whole Tool thing because I was into something else. I was listening to a lot of other stuff. So lately, I've been going into 10,000 Days and some of the stuff I just kind of missed. Because all I got was the stuff they did on the radio. Tool's a lot deeper than what you hear on the radio. And I just never had time to sit and listen to it all the way through. So I'm catching up on some of that stuff, and then I really like Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson. Those are some departures, and I love the band 07.
All right, all great choices there, nonetheless. And actually, I do remember seeing Opeth, but they actually played the Drapery Falls, which I mistakenly took for Blackwater Park because he said. He said too. I was like, "Oh, he's playing a song Blackwater Park." So I think someone corrected me on that too. So, right.
I'd seen Opeth. They just weren't. I guess that wasn't part of the trip that night. So I didn't get to see them perform it live. But I've seen Opeth. They're great. They're beyond. It's kind of the realm that I want to be. They're outside of the box. They're not. Like he gets up there and he'll jokingly, he was like, "We are the greatest death metal band in the world," and then they start playing this just out there. It's where genres don't exist anymore. You know what I mean? And I like that. Just this blank canvas, you can do whatever the fuck you want, and I love it, so
I respect Miguel for that too. So
yeah, he's great.
Oh yeah. So Graham, we're down to one more question in my podcast right here. I guess before we jump into it, would you like to ask me anything before we jump into it?
When do you want to play some drums for me, man?
I'd say, hey, whatever you need it. Just shoot me a track and I'll give you the details afterwards.
I'll send you some tracks, man. We'll do this.
All right. Anything else?
No, that'll work.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk more about it afterwards here too. But here's how the last question goes. So, given on what's been going on in the world, obviously we had COVID recently, and we obviously had like a bunch of shit shows so far in this millennium with 9/11, financial crisis, this and that, always impacting strictly America, but obviously in parts of the world, it seems like there's always been some shit going on. But I guess, and even for you in particular, it looks like even you've gone through some tough, bit of a rocky road to say the least. So for those people who are perhaps going through something similar or dealing with some bullshit in their lives, like what we've been talking about with your motto and everything, but what would be your message of hope so they can try to move forward with their lives?
Endure. It's and that goes to, it goes in with the concept of the scapegoat. It's a long journey through the desert. Endure, bear the burden. And you get it to where it needs to go. Just keep it simple. Fucking hang in there, man. That's about it. In the end, it all comes to a precipice, and you have a choice. Whether it's repeating old habits or anything like that. It's at any given moment, it could be a hair trigger away. Whether it's firing a firearm or taking a first drink or doing that one thing you shouldn't do. So find your balance. And endure.
Spoken like a true prodigy, to quote Quentin Tarantino. Always got to say that line there too. But all right, thank you so much for sharing that, mate. It really does mean a lot. Right. So Graham, we've reached the end of my podcast right here. We're just a little under an hour and 50 minutes right here. But I guess before we close out, like, give any final words, any shouts to anybody?
I gave a shout out to Death Drop, my buddy Death Dave. Check his stuff out. It's on Spotify. Death Drop is kind of one word. Check those guys out, and Illuminatus Music on Bandcamp. I'm also all over social media, and we're on YouTube. It's at Illuminatus Music on YouTube, and I'm just I'm getting more organized and getting my stuff together, and I'm inviting people to listen, and I'm inviting people to play with me, so check it all out, man.
We will. And just real quick, for the audience sake, can you just list what social media and stream platforms you're on?
I'm on Facebook, TikTok, which I really don't use, but I have one. I'm on X, which is pretty much a wasteland, but I'm on there. It's on Illuminatus ULTD, like Illuminatus Unlimited. That's Facebook, and you can find me, Graham Michael Watson. I'm on Facebook. And Instagram is Scapegoats on Instagram. I'm also on Reddit, Bleeding Goat. And I gotta buy me a coffee if you want to cruise by there too, and that's Bleeding Goat too. Illuminatus Music ULTD. Ultimately, I just wanted you to hear my music, but it would be nice to generate some money, and let's support music. It's there for you to listen to. But we got to eat too, man. So.
And pay bills, because unfortunately we're old.
Right. We're old. Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yep.
All right. But to close out like this, everyone, my guest today was a very special guest, Graham Michael Watson, hailing from Las Vegas, Nevada. So how about that? All right. So he's part of his own little group. He's got a whole bunch right here, but Illuminatus. Just want to make sure music, or he mentioned all his groups right here too. And plus, I think I'll share some of the links down about some of the bands he's been a part of here too. So, all right. So we have all stream platforms, all social media and everything here too. So let's go help my brother out and help him pay those bills so he doesn't feel as old. So.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. But Graham, nonetheless, you stay safe and God bless you, mate. So stay safe. Rock on.
All right.
Talk to you, y'all.
Let the metal flow.